Hello. Right. So we are going live today with Zana Morris. And lots of you know I've been working with Zana, the nutritionalist and also trainer, for over a year now. And I have been doing the 16/8 fasting, and 16/8 fasting has literally changed my life. And I want to share with you some of our top tips and some of our helpful, useful tips for exercise and fasting to help you lose that menopausal belly. Now, I have been working with Zana, as I said, for over a year now. I don't weigh myself anymore. I literally just use my little measuring, and if I feel like my jeans or my leggings or whatever it might be are getting a little bit tight, then I go a bit harder and stronger with it. Oh, sugar. I'm just trying to accept strong nutrition. I don't know how to do it. Oh no, what have I done? Zana, I'm really sorry. Technical error, might have accepted someone else. Um, oh
You
no,
got it.
knew I'd bugger this bit up. Here she is.
Oh, the joys.
Oh, dear. Oh my goodness me. Anyway. Well, we've got a few people joining us
Lovely to
already.
see
Hi,
you
Zana. Lovely
again.
to see you again.
Just going to turn this volume up a bit on my side.
Yay.
Perfect.
Okay. Yes. So I was sort of saying to the few that have joined already, what we're going to be talking about today, and it really is all about 16/8 fasting. And you're going to tell us, why is it's so unfair that we get to midlife and no matter what we do, it is so tricky to lose weight around our tummies, and why do we gain it, and how does 16/8 work so effectively? Because you know that I started off and I was 80 centimeters around my waist, which in inches I'm terrible. I do everything in centimeters because that's what my old Slimming World tape measure is. But basically I managed to lose in about 2 to 3 months, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Like 6
It's
centimeters, which
two and a half.
is
It's about 2.5 inches. Yeah.
two and a
Yeah.
half
It's
inches.
about 2.5 inches.
Yeah.
And it is exactly as you say. Okay. Obviously people can gain weight everywhere and anywhere, but the middle seems to be the one where it really hits hard once we hit. For some from the
Yeah.
late 30s onwards, for others it's more to mid late 40s, but it's that whole perimenopause, menopausal phase where it can start going on. The science is pretty straightforward. There's obviously a lot going on in the body, but this is the simple version of it. I believe there's not one but three things that go on at this time. So the first one is the one we sort of all know about, which is perimenopause and menopause. And that fluctuation in estrogen does seem to have an impact on insulin and in making us more insulin resistant. Now, just to summarize, all weight around the middle is related to our bodies releasing too much insulin for whatever reason. And with perimenopause, menopause, with that estrogen levels changing, it seems to impact the body's release of insulin, and we release more. So it tends to go on around the belly. But I think there's two other things that go on then as well. I think we have at that stage a good solid 3, if not 4 decades of potentially not eating as well as we could. So slightly too much carbohydrate or slightly too much sugar in the diet than what we've probably been designed for, if you like, for our bodies. That we didn't evolve with quite so much in terms of the carbohydrate base, and that impacts insulin. And then the third thing, honestly, I don't know a single woman in her 40s that doesn't seem to be juggling way more. I mean, way more than she did in her 30s and her 20s. In fact, if she did half of what she's doing now in her early 20s, she probably wouldn't have coped. it's
Absolutely.
Oh, honestly,
We're all
from
bloody
I mean,
superwomen.
I
We
don't
really
have
are.
children, so I'm saying with respect for those with children and the careers and businesses and parents that they may be looking after and everything else, we just seem to be pulling it all together from every side and expecting to do it all perfectly. So the brief overview on that one, of course, is cortisol, which is one of those stress hormones that's designed to give us, I often describe it as a coffee hit almost. It acts like that. It's designed to help drive our bodies to be able to deal with the stress, to fight or to run. One of its jobs is to break down our muscle tissue to access sugar and get it into the bloodstream, so we have the energy to fight or run, so we have the energy to juggle all these things. And that, of course, means the body is then going to release insulin to get that sugar out. Your body, in essence, has acted like it's eaten sugar, even though it hasn't. So all that stress and cortisol can cause weight around the middle. It's a very long way around saying that.
Yeah.
So the combination of stress, decades of
Yeah,
bad
yeah,
habits, and
yeah.
then we've got the perimenopause, menopause, and it's like a perfect storm,
Absolutely.
effectively.
Yeah, exactly. So really, sugar is what we need to move away from, and that is something that I changed. Well, the first things that when we were working together that I changed, because I thought I was doing a really having a great breakfast of like fruit salad, right? Who here has fruit salad for breakfast thinking they're doing a good thing? And obviously the first thing that we spoke about was my average daily nutrition and what I was eating, and the first thing you were like was cut that out, have the fruit,
Yeah.
but you must have the
Yeah.
protein to start with. So so yeah, so first of all we were upping the protein
Yes.
and reducing the sugar. And even when I was looking at things like soups and things, looking on the back to see which had the highest sugar and which had the highest fat. And previously I would have gone for the one with the lower fat, but now I go for the one with the lower sugar. So it was those sorts of tweaks and just being really mindful about the sugar intake that I was taking was the first step.
And upping that protein,
and
and I'm
upping
just
that
jumping in there
protein.
briefly because you've hit the nail on the head with two things there. We've learned to think of weight loss in terms of calories, and there's no question fruit will have benefits. I mean, gosh, we're not knocking that. There's antioxidants, there's a cleansing effect, there's all sorts of benefits.
No,
helps get the digestion moving, but we almost think of shape in terms of calories, and fruit doesn't have much calories. And then when you're looking at those ingredients, the sugar is less calories than the fat. Forget, once you hit this point in life, once you're dealing with insulin, this has nothing to do with calories anymore, or very little. I mean, very little. It might have a little bit to do with it, but nothing like it has to do with the insulin. And
lots of people are asking, is it good to have protein shakes with breakfast? And that's
I
definite,
think so.
isn't
It
it?
depends a little on which shake. But yes, protein shakes can work great with breakfast. They really can. They really can. And the only reason I say it depends on which shake is because some shakes will have a blend of everything in there, which, depending on what the everything is, it could be good or bad. So again, yes.
Yeah, it could
So
have
you're
loads of
watching
sugar
for
in it,
to
couldn't it?
make
And then
sure
that
they
would
are
totally
clean
wipe
protein
out what.
shakes.
So we go with the strong
We do go to
nutrition.
well, actually, the reason I like the casein, which is the strong nutrients one, and for anyone vegans out there, this is not vegan, just being straight up. We can come back to that in a second. It is vegetarian. But the reason I go for casein, and anyone who knows me will know this, is casein is very slow release, which means there's very, very little insulin spike. The body can get to absorb all of it because it breaks down so lovely and slowly. And it's very alkaline. It keeps you fuller for so much longer and you don't get the cravings. Casein is basically what you get in cheese, like cottage cheese or any cheese, quite frankly, or yogurt. And it's very slowly broken down. So it really does sustain you, but also helps prevent the insulin spiking. Whereas some protein shakes are faster release, which means you can get a little spike afterwards. And that's what we're trying to avoid with
Yeah,
everything we've
sure.
got.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And as soon as I started having more protein for my breakfast, and depending on what I was doing, I started off with having just literally 2 boiled eggs on 2 bits of brown bread toast. And that was kind of my brunchy breakfast, which I'd have at like maybe 11, 12-ish. And then I would be having a later lunch and then my evening meal. But all the time adding proteins as I was going, and then finding that I really was fuller for longer. And so having my last meal, if it was at 11 o'clock and doing when I started doing the 16/8, my last meal is at 8 p.m. I'm rubbish
8
with the
to
time.
12
It is, isn't it?
or 7 to
No,
11.
7.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. Yeah, 7,
Yes.
11 a.m. and then 7 p.m. But I'd probably be more like 12 and 1 till 8, 9. Having all of that protein, and especially more protein in my last meal, was then helping to be fuller for longer, so I could push back my my breakfast as far as I possibly could. So already I've been asked, I can see lots of lovely questions coming up. So why is it best to do the 16 hours rather than, you could do 12, you can do, or you can do 5-2. I used to do 5-2 and starve myself for 2 days, and it was horrific. I lost weight, but I couldn't sustain it. Whereas I've been doing this for over a year now, and I have sustained it. So
the benefits and
why
so
does it work?
I mean, the 5-2 is good. It's not knocking the 5-2, except in your case, with everything you were doing, that 5-2 was leading you into almost a roller coaster ride, which is exactly what I didn't want to happen. The 16/8, and why 16 over 12 or 14? Any fasting's useful. So anything that gives your body a rest is going to be useful. But towards the end of a 16/8 fast, so around about the 14th hour, give or take, the body seems to start switching. That has a lovely balancing effect on hormones, including insulin, which is one of the big reasons for doing it. And it also seems that the body switches. It starts converting fats. You've got a stubborn fat that the fat can't really make use of for energy, and it starts converting that into form it can make use of for energy. So one of the reasons I love intermittent fasting isn't just because of the way it impacts belly fat. It's because energy levels tend to be better. It's almost retraining the body into something they call metabolic flexibility, where I can access fat stores and start utilizing it for energy. Whereas often, particularly when you hit this point in life, our body is so reliant on sugars, it almost doesn't know what to do with the fat. So you could almost starve yourself and not lose. You know, you could drop your calories down to next to nothing and it can't quite get into it. Whereas the intermittent fasting seems to help the body convert that fat, and it gets used to then utilizing it as a fuel source. I mean, it's got so many other benefits from a health point of view, a longevity point of view, rejuvenation of cells, mitochondria, and so on and so forth. There's loads and loads of benefits. And there's loads of benefits. Like you mentioned the 5-2, there's other benefits to that. The lovely thing about the 16/8, though, is exactly what you said. It's something people can sustain, and it can become a way of life as opposed to a diet, if you like. More of a way of life. I'm looking at this question. Do you mind me getting distracted by this lovely question?
I know. Alternatives to sugar. I mean, for me, and this is what I have, like my partner is a chocoholic, and it's a nightmare. Every evening he gets out the bloody Cadbury's, other brands available of. Anyway, he gets it all out, and I've got a whole load of little tangerines on the side. And during the week I'm quite good, and I can say no, because I then, after your main meal, if you then like wait 15 minutes and then you have like a piece of chocolate, that's you have to start the fast from that point. So I might wolf down. If I really feel I need some sugar, I'll have like a little tangerine at that point. But otherwise I just go, no, that's it. I'm now had my main meal, I'm in my fast. Even if I've had a glass of wine, I'll with my meal, I will, have that last sip, won't have another glass of wine, because what's the point? It's only going to push back when I can start eating in the morning. So it's definitely helps.
It helps stop the cravings. That question is really interesting, because the term sugar addict almost says it all. It is an addiction to sugar. Sugar does act like a drug, and it hits our serotonin and dopamine in similar ways to drugs, in essence. So it's
the more
it is
you
exactly
have of it,
that.
the more you want.
And that insulin, when insulin goes up, there's a hormone that comes in afterwards called ghrelin, and that's the one that makes you crave. That's the one that drives you to the fridge looking for something else sweet. And until you stabilize the insulin, oh my God, it takes such willpower to override the ghrelin. It really does. You need to be strong mentally. So if you can look at it almost from a hormonal balancing point of view, as opposed to I've got to stop sugar. And there's a few little hacks. This is where the intermittent fasting does come in. It's one of the ways to start stabilizing those sugar levels, or those insulin levels, more to the point. The second you've mentioned is, and just to clarify what and why, if you have a high sugar breakfast, your insulin will go up, and it will be up for the day, which means the ghrelin will keep spiking up. You'll want to eat through sugar all day. You'll want biscuits at 11, you'll want something else at 1, you'll want something else at 4. So you've got to get that breakfast right. And if you get it right, you've a really good shot that you won't crave for the rest of the day. Hence the more, protein
the difference,
fat-based one, exactly that. Get the protein and the fat in. For some, it may mean, certainly to begin with, even avoiding the bread. For some, just get all the carbohydrates out initially until you get the insulin flatlined, and then you can reintroduce them. So there's sort of the two. And then the third one is just take protein first. So if at 4 o'clock you go, my God, I need the chocolate or I need the biscuit, have some protein first. So yeah, bits of chicken. Exactly. I was just going to say, bits of chicken would work. A little bit of a protein shake would work. A protein pot from Pret would work. Any little bit of protein, and then you feel fuller, don't you? You just sort of feel it steadies it. And then if you really still need the chocolate, have it. And one of 2 things will happen. One of 3 things will happen. You'll either won't feel like it at all, or if you do, you'll feel like less. And worst case scenario, if you do still feel like the whole lot, you won't do as much damage, because the sugar will hit the protein before it goes straight into the bloodstream. So it slows down that feed of sugar into the blood, if you like. So there's less of a big insulin surge, which means there's less of a ghrelin one afterwards. So you'll stabilize everything just that little bit more. So it's just those 3 things. It's the intermittent fasting, particularly the 16 hours, because between hour 14 and 16 seems to be the real key. Getting the protein fat kind of breakfast, like eggs and avocado, would work wonderfully well. Protein shakes do work wonderfully well, and more of a protein based with a little bit of fat breakfast, and then if it's later in the day, have a bit of protein first, and that does it. And then, as you say, once you really know, oh my God, I've got 16 hours to go on this fast, if I eat an hour drink now, I've got to stretch it tomorrow. That can be a psychological hit to keep you focused.
Exactly. Definitely. But I mean, most of that 16 hours, you're asleep. I mean, really. So you just need to have a little window of a couple of hours in the evening where you really stop before you go to bed. If that's 8, 9 o'clock, and then I'm in bed by 11, 12, then up at 7. And, obviously, depending on when you finish eating, but, up at 7. And if you can push it, I just have black coffee in the mornings. I have 2 black coffees in the morning, and keep busy, go to the gym, if I can, obviously going to work. And I really do find that a couple of black coffees gets me through. And when I start to feel hungry, I actually quite enjoy, I don't even get hungry for quite a while, but when I start to feel those hunger pangs, sometimes I just push them a little bit further, because that's when I know that the 16 is really working, especially when I first started doing this and I could see that the centimeters were coming off. Now it's just like a normal feeling, and I probably, I just do it. I just start eating when I'm actually hungry. And sometimes it can be 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. By that point, I can be quite ravenous.
Want to get it,
and then
you want to get it in. You want to get it in.
Yeah.
And the key is to eat as you need in that gap. There's a question there of, can I lose my weight without using protein? Now, if you mean the protein powder, oh my gosh, yes. But if you mean protein generally, which is your fish, your meat, that kind of thing, then we're into a complete other conversation. No, you can, but you don't want to, because then you'll start losing muscle. And we were chatting about this earlier, Alice, where that muscle is everything. Just a very quick run on that. Loads of you will have heard this before, but I'm going to give you the very quick overview. And we were discussing this earlier, Alice. We lose about half a pound of muscle a year from the age of 30 to the age of 50. Oh, I'm sorry, onwards. Sorry, age of 30 onwards. So by the age of 50, that's 10 pounds of muscle. Now, the only food group that helps us retain the muscle or recover it is proteins. In other words, you've got your fats, which are great for energy, they're great for hormones, they're great for fat-soluble nutrients, and so on and so forth. You've got your carbohydrates, which in essence break down into the sugars that give you the fast release, and will have certain other vitamins within them and minerals that are useful. And then you've got your protein, which is your fish, your meat, your lentils, your pulses, those kind of foods. So the protein is essential. That's the only food group that will build a structural tissue of your body. And if you diet without keeping an eye on protein, you will lose more muscle again. And that means you're losing all the solid tissue, which includes collagen from the skin. It'll mean protein out of the bones. It'll affect bone density and so on and so forth. So yes, you can do it without protein shakes, but do not do it without protein.
Because my partner is pescatarian, so you know, when I'm not when in our evening meal we get HelloFreshes, and I order ones with high protein. So, but that doesn't have to be meat. We do fish, salmon, you know, beans, all of those types of things that you know, cheeses, all of those types of things that we can get the protein from. So it doesn't have to be meat, but you can still get a huge amount of protein. Someone was asking how much protein. You've said this to me before, how you measure it, don't you?
It's
depending on your weight.
There's a few ways of answering that question. So I'll give you a couple of angles on it. The overview is this. It is about, it really depends on individuals and how much training you're doing. And I've got a whole little blog on this yes, exactly. A whole little blog on this in Strong Nutrients. The absolute minimum, I mean, gosh, the absolute minimum would be about half a gram of protein per pound of body weight. If you weigh 140 pounds, you want about 70 grams of protein in a day. And just to put that in perspective, we're looking about, a salmon steak. A 100 grams of salmon will have about 20 grams of protein in it. A scoop of the protein shake will have between 25 and 28 grams of protein in it, depending which flavor you go for. A good steak will have 25 grams of protein per 100 grams. So often with clients, I'll break it down. It does depend on, obviously, height can make a difference. So we say by your general body weight. Stress you're under will make a difference. If you do a lot of training, that will make a difference. So it can vary from one individual to the next. But I think the simple thing, every single client I've ever come across, I think in 30 plus years of doing this, I think I might have come across 2 women taking in too much protein. In other words, it's really hard to do.
Really hard.
It's really hard to do.
I struggle.
It doesn't happen very often.
I really do.
It doesn't.
No.
It
is hard, and that definitely helps.
You can up it. And just a very fast way to answer that question is, my loose rule of thumb is, if you're eating twice a day, first meal have between 60 to 80 grams of protein food, which like 60 to 80 grams of, say, smoked salmon, the equivalent of 2 to 3 eggs. And if you're eating only a second time in the day, have between 2 to 240 grams of the protein food, which is like 2 salmon fillets or a good medium steak. That's roughly the overview. So you're looking at about between 3 up to 400 grams of protein food in a day, if that makes sense. So you divide that by about 4 or 5 to get how much protein is actually in that.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Another question I had earlier, which I thought was really interesting, was what happens if you know when you're about to go on holiday and you're like worked really well to get your bikini body ready, etc., and then you're away for a week and you're all inclusive and all the rest of it. I mean, I literally went to Greece just recently and I thought, bugger it, I'm on holiday. However, for a whole year I've been doing this, that it's just my habits now. It's ingrained in me. I didn't want to miss the buffet breakfast, and that finished at 10. So I brought my eating forward, but I was going for the boiled eggs. I was going for the ham. I was going for the salad and the fruit, but having the eggs first. And I kind of still ate the high protein, but obviously had lots of alcohol and lots of meals. Yeah, exactly. But I didn't beat myself up about it. But then when I was, we were in Greece, so we had like, beautiful feta salads, and I was, choosing grilled fish and steaks and chicken and all that kind of stuff.
Well,
But just give yourself a week off,
yes,
because you can come back to it.
you
And
can,
you can
and there's
come
also
back
just
to
little
it.
tips to bring into that if you want to keep a little eye on it. It's exactly as you said there. Get the breakfast more or less right, because on a holiday you tend to have control over breakfast. So if you're in an all-inclusive, then just lean towards the protein aspects. If you can get the lunch right, that works really well, and salads are fantastic. And by right I mean just keep out this starchy obvious carbs like the breads, the rice, the pasta, at least in the first half of the day. Because as I said earlier, if your insulin goes up in the morning, it's very hard to get it back down. And then you can relax a bit more in the evening. For a lot of people, as you say, you got into a lovely habit with it. So chances are, if a bread basket arrived in the evening, you wouldn't bother with it. If you can do that, that's wonderful. Just avoid it. But again, as you say, you're on holiday, so it's not the end of the world if you do. I find the three things I usually ask clients to do is, the first is get that breakfast right. Try not to go crazy in the morning, relax later in the day. Second is try not to snack. That's where people can go wrong. So if you want an ice cream, have it, but try and tag it with the lunch or tag it with the evening, rather than just having it as almost a fourth meal, if that makes sense. Have it with it, so that you give the body a little bit of a gap in between. And those work superbly well. And then alcohol is, if you can keep it to just evening drinking rather than starting at the lunchtime, that can make all the difference in the world. If you can.
No chance of that. That's why I said give it a week off. Yeah, no, absolutely. And what you were just talking about then, of having the just not snacking in between. When I first started doing this again, I was like, eat as much as you can possibly eat between those 8 hours. But now I'll like push my breakfast back and call it brunch, and that is lunch and breakfast, obviously, and then maybe a mid-afternoon snack, and just basically try and eat 3 times a day, with the mid-afternoon snack being a very high protein bit of chicken. I love the little chicken on sticks with like the sweet chili sauce, or that's got sugar in it, so I normally go for the peanut satay one.
Yes.
Which is
better
because it's higher fat, but I tend not to even eat the sauces. I just eat this, the chicken on the sticks, and then evening meal. But I mean, I'm terrible with crisps and alcohol. Those are I fall down so badly. I reckon if I didn't drink alcohol, I wouldn't eat the crisps. It's the, like, when you want the crisps, because it's that salty, nice snack that you can have when you are having a drink. And as soon as I've had a drink, I'd like,
but this is where the intermittent fasting comes in so helpful, because it does do reset. And obviously on my side, I'm not going to encourage people to have crisps and alcohol, but in the real world, a lot of people are going to have it. And I agree. And I think this is why the intermittent fasting, and they're not snacking, they're not grazing between meals. And a very quick note on that, because I think one of the questions earlier was about that and the gaps between meals. I was saying to you earlier, Alice, in my early days when I was kicking off with strong nutrients, and in my innocence, I was thinking I could, hurry suppliers along by telling them, listen, don't worry about getting me, 1,000 of these pots, just give me 50 just to tide me over. And they laughed at me, because as they said, it makes no difference. For us to do 50, we still have to clean down the machines. We still have to stop production of everything else. We still have to get the teams in. It makes no difference if it's 50 or 50,000. It's irrelevant. When we eat, it's the same. If you can think internally, everything from the digestive enzymes in your mouth right through to the stomach, through the intestines, all of the enzymes, the hormones, everything that goes on to digest. It doesn't matter if you're taking a fistful of berries or having a meal. The whole production line goes into play. And every time it does, your body doesn't get a chance to reset. The insulin spikes again. And it's all about giving it that reset. So the gaps between the meals, it almost doesn't matter how long they are, as long as it's a proper gap, and then eat. Don't graze. Just don't graze. And that makes all the difference in the world. Can I jump in quickly, Alice, with the thing, because you mentioned this earlier about the exercise, and I know we don't have a lot more time, but I think it's well worth talking about, because you train and you train really well, and possibly better and more than a lot of people might be used to doing, or I mean, often I say some will be doing exactly what you do, but many may not, and they'll want to know what you do and what they have to do to get there. Because in fairness to you, you really do train hard. And we mentioned earlier about the breakfast, and I was saying with some, they may need to take the carbs out of the breakfast to lose more fat. Because of the way you train, I think you get away with that, and it works beautifully. You've just reduced it. You still have the bread, but with the protein, and that helps work with your training. I don't know if you want to run through what you do, and then we can look at what other people can kind of do. Can you train on an empty stomach? Yes, please, but I'll come back to that in a second.
Yes.
What do you do?
So
let's start with what you do. Yeah,
My exercise. My exercise for the week, Monday mornings, either a spin class or kettlebells, and then go and do some further weight training for about 20 minutes. Tuesdays I'm in the office, and I'll try and do a lunchtime run of 5k, trying to get under my 30 minutes of 5k. Wednesday, early morning spin toning class, which is using weights, which is five pounds per weight, dumbbells, and we kind of like do 45 minutes, and then I'll go on and do a little bit more weight training after. And then I pretty much like front load my week with my exercise, and then if I get to do something at the weekend, then brilliant, but I kind of do it that way. Nick's just come in the door. Nick, I'm on a live. And also with my exercising, I try not to drink Monday to Wednesday as well, which is only 3 days, and then I drink wine and so forth, like for the rest of the week, unless I've got an event or something like that. Then obviously I'll mix it all up. So I really do sort of like, I start the week really super healthy, and then
there's a couple of things with that. So the high intensity training and the weight training. So spinning is a high intensity training. Obviously the cardiac weights is high intensity, and weight training. Both seem to counteract insulin. So they're great for targeting belly fat. And I think, and this is not saying you should change anything, and I mean it, but I think if people even started with shorter bursts of those kind of high intensity bursts of training, you'd start seeing a result, both for the fat loss and for the toning and for the firming. It makes a big difference. The front loading, I don't think is any harm. The body needs rest and recovery time. So if you do only train, I mean, personally, I kind of think 4 good high intensity training sessions is really the most people should be doing, unless they're more training for something or they're a semi-professional athlete, then that's a whole different conversation. So I don't think big intense training sessions every day is any use. Your body can't recover, and you could end up increasing cortisol and increasing the belly fat. So you're better off doing it for very focused days and then resting and recovering.
And then because of my job with personal styling, I walk a lot included in the job. And like last week at Royal Ascot, I mean, I was telling you earlier, it was like 20,000 plus steps a day. So I didn't go to the gym, obviously, because I was there. And then even while I was there, when you're working at an event, it's what you can grab as you go. So, you know, I was having bacon sandwiches and oh my goodness, like pastries and just terrible foods. But I just was like, this is it's out of my control this week. I can't do it. I couldn't even carry around bits of chicken in my handbag, you know, because it just was really hot and it wouldn't have worked. But other times you can.
And the point of this approach of the intermittent fasting, reducing the carbohydrates, is clear from you. You're not cutting them out. You're reducing them. It is to help get your hormonal balance working a little bit more like it did in your, say, early 30s, late 20s, which does mean you will get away with the days off of the holiday and the here and there. It's not all going to suddenly bounce back again. It's to balance it up.
I mean, absolutely. And the thing is as well, I am more relaxed. I work really hard with the training and the diet and early in the week, but I'm more relaxed at the weekend because that is my balance. I'm no way, shape or form a skinny mini. I never want to be. All I'm trying to do is be strong and healthy and fit, and, you know, to maintain at least a size 12. I do it all on the dress sizes. My upper half is a 10, my lower half carry more weight on my bottom and my thigh area is a 12. So I verge between. But when I have been bigger, I'm a 12 to 14, and I don't feel that's not my fighting weight. You know, a 10 to 12 is my fighting weight, and it's nothing about trying to be a size 6 or 8 or anything like that, because it's just not my natural way. I wouldn't be able to be happy and live the life that I do.
Equally,
lots of fun.
From a health perspective, it's fat around the belly that's always the question mark. Fat anywhere else is no issue health wise. After that, it's aesthetic. As in, it's up to you. If you some people want large hips and bums, other people don't. From a health point of view, there is nothing wrong with being large anywhere else, just to be super clear to anyone listening. The health issue is only around the waist and the tummy. That's the only thing we're looking at. And that's the insulin, and that's the one you're looking to stabilize. And that makes all the difference. So yes, that's exactly it. So that's that short. And just back to that question of, should you eat before you train, or should you eat and train and then something in the morning? Yes, please, with the only prerequisite, if you're not used to doing it, if your body's really used to sugar burning all the time and you get these dips, then you're going to have to initially train your body to be able to flip into fat burning, rely more on the protein. In English, get more protein in the evening, get more used to your fasting, and you'll be able to do it. There's a lovely growth hormone release that occurs when you do high intensity training and weight training, and that's the one that seems to flatline the insulin. And if you eat just before you train, that doesn't happen. So you want to not eat for 1 to 2 hours before your training session, and equally the same after. But if you're very used to eating before and after, then you may need to build up to that. And getting more protein in the diet generally will prepare you for that.
I think that's the whole building up to everything is so important, and I think we're going to have to do another live soon, because I don't want this to go on much longer. But my very top tip is add the protein and start with, you know, if you with the intermittent fasting between, start eating at, if you normally wake up at 7, push it till 8 o'clock that you have your breakfast for a week or so. Then if you wake up at 7 in 2 weeks time, push it to 9 o'clock,
go that way,
you know, and stop at 9. And that's 9 till 9 is 12 hours obviously, and then you just keep pushing it further and further apart
and if you get more in the evening, it'll help. And there's a lovely question here from Brophy: does this guidance-free protein and fasting apply post-menopause? Moreover, even more again, genuinely, because with it, the stabilizing of insulin just gets more important as we age, as does the protein intake, because we are losing, honestly, that half a pound a year from the age of 30 of lean body mass that we're losing. But it accelerates as we get older. So by the time we're in our, say, 60s or even 70s, we're probably losing more than half a pound a year. So we just have to counteract that. And that's where the protein comes in. The fasting, weirdly, is not about, now, this is one thing I'd love to make clear. Fasting is not about reducing calorie intake. And it's not about losing weight because you're not eating. It's about the body doing a reset that stabilizes and gets the body back to where it should. And it has a lovely, dare I say, I don't like the term, but it describes it, anti-aging impact. It really helps cells rejuvenate and recover. So it actually gets almost more important as we age, not less. And combined with the protein, then you get the nutrient that helps rebuild those cells. So it's actually even more important for strength. Never mind the shape, but for strength as we age, most definitely. Gosh, yes, please. Do.
Susie might take 7 of your products. No, I really recommend all of Zana's strong nutritions as well, and yeah, definitely. But we've been 40 minutes now, and we could chat for ages. I love talking to Zana. I find it so interesting and inspiring, and if you guys would like us to come back and do more of these, then obviously let us know, and we will, because, you know, we could chat forever about all of this. So thank you, Zana. That was absolutely brilliant. Well, I feel like we were like chatting so quickly, but let me try and not bugger this up and try and save it. So
I will go, and thank you so much, Alice. Appreciate it. Take care.
All right, lots of love. Thanks everyone for joining. Thank you. See you soon. Bye.